there's no recession, right? B, because the economy is strong. But, when you look at, we added 50 or 0.5%, 52 basis points at the minimum to the GDP numbers to get them to where they were. And that was all government spending.
You're listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
And welcome. You are listening to and watching the Financial Survival Network. I'm your host, Kerry Lutz, and noted economic expert Ed Sidell is with us. Ed, we got to talk about these GDP numbers. The economy is doing so great. Why is everyone so miserable?
Well, the reports are, there's no recession, right? B, because the economy is strong. But, when you look at, we added 50 or 0.5%, 52 basis points at the minimum to the GDP numbers to get them to where they were. And that was all government spending. That's inflationary. And we were talking about it right before we started. I just wanted to double check the numbers. Did you know so far this year, fiscal year 2024, that we have already spent $6.75 trillion already?
Really?
And I would not be shocked if our debt hits $36 trillion on election day or thereabouts.
I got a question for you. Yeah. Hey, right before it, Trump's proposing elimination of the federal income tax. Man, I want to take my champagne bottle out now. And replacement with some type of, he said tariff, but I think a VAT would also be required there. Is this doable?
You know what? I actually, when he first said it, I was like, yeah, boy, that's kind of out there. And then I remembered, something that our Laffer said, earlier in the year. So I started looking at it, and it really is doable. The VAT or consumption tax. But yeah, I think it really is. Some of the other things that he was talking about, which is doing away with taxes on Social Security. They were talking about adding to the national debt. But it's always the opposite of what you really think, because, when you look at the math behind a statement like that, and you just go back to, the current tax plan that we're in right now that goes away, it sunsets, the December 31st of 2025, we are taking in more tax revenues now under the current tax code, which was, under the Trump administration, than in the history of the United States. The problem is that we're spending more. I think in August, we talked about this last time, we took in like over $400 billion in 1 month, and we spent over $480 billion deficit. We overspent, $480 billion. So, when you look at these tax reducing strategies, can we add more tax revenue? And I think the answer is yes, absolutely, because when you look at, he also wants to reduce the business tax, from the current 21 down to 15%. And I think that's also going to have a very positive impact on tax revenues. So how is that going to have a positive twist on tax revenues? Well, now more people from a consumption standpoint, they're going to be able to live a higher standard of living. They're going to be able to spend more, which is going to create more tax revenues, over the long haul. Especially with the tariffs. If companies are having to spend 100, 200%, I'm using Trump's words, more just to bring their goods and services into the U.S., what are they going to do? They're going to open up factories here in the U.S., which is going to increase the revenue base, and that's how he's going to accomplish that. So, it's very ingenious. You really have to think outside of the box. But once you do the math, I think it's a very doable deal.
So what about the no taxes on tips? I mean, is that just a pandering, vote buying type thing, or can you really do that fairly? Because it is income, although you can make the argument that it's a gift.
Yeah, and you know what? In the service industry, so my middle son is a server at a higher end restaurant, and the tips. So he's not even making minimum wage, it's those that are in that service industry. It's the difference between if you're not having to pay taxes on those tips. It's the difference between making ends meet. And not having to get a second job. So I think it really is, from a quality of life standpoint, it's going to be life changing for, the working class American, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And it's really not fair, but there are highly paid waiters and waitresses and wait staff at fine restaurants, they're making six figures.
Yes.
And same with, in Vegas, one of the best paid jobs is valet, parking cars,
right,
and maid, right?
Oh, without a doubt. And think about it like this, Kerry, is that we're moving away from cashless society. So, those tips, everything's going to be, electronic, whether it's through credit cards or, they're pushing through the CBDC, central bank digital currency,
sure,
so that they're going to be able to track it. And if you don't have to pay taxes on those electronic transfers, it is, it's going to add a lot to the economy. And you're right. The restaurant chain, if you will, they're all high end restaurants that my son works at. He goes to college too, but everyone in there, it's mid six figures. They're humping it, but they definitely earn it for sure. So
yeah, fascinating. So I just it really interests me the way this happens. Policy emerges because you don't start with a clean slate, so you got to work with what's there. But really, in so many areas of what the government does, we need to throw out virtually everything it does and start the thing over again, because it's so messed up and it's so corrupted. And this really is a change election, not talking about politics, but about policy. Policy is far more important than politics. Politics just gets people at each other's throats. Policy, you actually work together to solve problems, something we've seemingly been unable to do in this country for 20 years or more.
Well, you're right. What's that old saying? If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And Elon Musk, what he did with Twitter, now X, in cutting the fat, looking at, what they're looking, to trimming the fat for, government employees. Probably a little tongue in cheek when he said, hey, we're going to give 2 years worth of severance so that way they can figure out what they want to do next. But we're overspending so much. A lot of the jobs that we've added this year, just like last year, they're federal government jobs, and that is nothing but inflationary. I heard that it's over 50% of the employees in DC are still working from home. They're not even in the office. So, are they really needed and necessary? And I'm asking because honestly, I don't know. And your comment on policy versus politics, that's a big deal. There was an article that came out when, the mid-sized businesses and obviously the Fortune 500, CEOs were asked this question. What would you rather see? Would you rather see lower taxes or less regulation? Do you know what over 90% responded was? Less regulation.
Yeah.
Right. Because, all of these regulations, it's business prevention. Now, look, I believe me, I'm big on the environment. I'm an outdoorsman. I don't want to see water bottles and trash everywhere I go. But, when the EPA turns a puddle into a lake or a pond and you can't even do anything on your own property, that becomes excessive. So
complete madness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Well, so once the election is over, silly season, where do you see the market heading? The market seems to be pricing in a Trump victory, in my opinion.
Without a doubt. We're seeing a couple things. We're seeing these, Trump trades that are being placed. Value companies, those companies with strong balance sheets. What's been very ironic is, even as companies are coming out, beating expectations on the street as their earnings have come out, those companies have remained very flat. But we're already starting to see movement in healthcare. We're already starting to see movement in energy. And again, I think the markets are pricing in, a Trump victory. But one of the other things that the markets are pricing in, especially the bond markets, is that even though the Fed's lowered rates 50 basis points, and I think they're probably going to lower them again another, 25 bips in a couple weeks. I don't say I agree with it. I understand why they're doing it. The bond market is like, inflation isn't going away anytime soon. And so yields are going higher. So, I think that there's, a little push-pull going on in the markets right now. I think everyone's kind of anxious to see what's going to happen, a week from today, the outcome of the election.
Yeah, well, we'll know a week from today. That's for sure. All right.
Yes.
I appreciate your coming on, sharing your opinions on things. Tell us again where we find you, how we connect with you.
Yeah, you can find us on the interwebs at egsifinancial.com.
All right. And the link is in the show notes to this interview on financialsurvivalnetwork.com. While you're there, please sign up for a free newsletter like 40,000 other subscribers have done. And if you got any questions, shoot me an email, kl@kerrylutz.com. Ed, always a pleasure. Be well. Talk to you after the election.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.